You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, music fans. This is Modern Musicology. I am glad that you're here listening. My name is Alan, and joining me are Stephanie Seymour.
Hi, everybody.
And Rob Levy.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea.
And tonight, our topic is surprise favorites. Now, I suggested this topic I don't know, months ago. And I had something very particular in mind when I was thinking of it. And I have no idea what it was. So even I don't know what the hell this topic means. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing this show with the two of you tonight and having no idea what it is you're all going to bring to the discussion. Because, you know, usually we have a very specific topic. It can be broad, it can be narrow, but we know what the parameters are for the discussion. For this one, I have no idea where this is going to go. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. So basically the surprise is going to be everything that you two say to me. So let's get rolling. So I'm curious to know, when you read the pitch, surprise favorites, how did you interpret that? Like, what was your starting point for the things that you picked?
I mean, the things I picked were basically songs that either I didn't like at the time and I have like come to appreciate now, or songs that maybe I heard so many times that I finally was like, you know what? I like this. This is a good song. And I also had two artists that, in other words, songs that maybe made me like an artist's career. Okay. You know, that sort of got me into an artist more than I was before or whatever.
That sounds interesting. I can't wait to hear what you got.
I kind of did the same thing as Steph, where I just tried to find songs that I didn't like and have worn down on, or things that are kind of outside the box that I like that finally wore me down. Mm-hmm. And then also, kind of after we heard from Alan earlier, I made a list of like artists and things that I came to that I'm surprised I like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Too.
Yeah.
Alan, what about you?
Well, for mine, you know, I was kind of going with things like either it was an artist that I didn't really care for, but then something came along and that I really loved, or things that came to me in a surprising way, maybe something that I would never have encountered otherwise. And I'm surprised how much I loved it. Mm-hmm. And in one case, it's like an artist that has a huge career, and I have a huge amount of respect for this person, and, you know, and would say I'm a fan, but I've never collected any albums or anything like that, except for one. So it's going to be interesting to hear all of our selections. So I'm just going to, since in our 1983 show, I mentioned Ray of Light by Madonna. So I'm just gonna start with that one because I was enough of a Madonna fan. Over the years, I kind of accumulated a song here or there that I liked, you know, like Open Your Heart, I really dug, and La Isla Bonita, Live to Tell. And then from the following album, Like a Prayer, the song Like a Prayer just really kind of blew me away. And the song from that album, Oh Father, I just thought was incredible. I just loved that song. So, you know, I was kind of like getting on the Madonna train, but Ray of Light came along and I was already starting to get a little bit more into the electronica scene, you know, so anything that had sort of like a techno-y sort of production about it, I was starting to really starting to get into. And the year before Ray of Light, Bowie had released Earthling, which was sort of a jungle / house / drum and bass kind of thing. He was sort of getting into the zeitgeist of the music industry at the time, and put out this album that I loved. I thought it was extraordinary, and it was so different from anything that Bowie had done before. So I was already sort of like, the stage had been set, and then Ray of Light came along, and it just blew my mind. And I can remember when I finally, like, I know that Frozen was the first single, but I'm sure the first song from it that I heard was the title song, which was the second single. And I heard Frozen after that. So Ray of Light came out, and I loved it, the single. I thought it was really cool. And then I heard Frozen, and I was like, oh shit, I got to have this. So I went out and bought the album. And I can remember the day that I came home with it, I literally laid on the floor in my bedroom for half a day and just played the album over and over and over. Like, I could not let it go. I was just like swimming in this sea of like technoscape. And I didn't want to leave that environment.
That's
like,
so cool.
I was just obsessed with it. And that totally took me by surprise.
Yeah.
A, that I had bought a Madonna album, and B, that it affected me that much.
Well, I'm going to go off your Madonna thing because that is someone who I had on my list. But I'm an album before you because from the Like a Prayer album. I never really, I wasn't a fan of hers very much. I mean, I definitely thought her stuff was catchy and poppy, and I could appreciate it. But I just wasn't, I was like, oh, she's just so, I just thought she wasn't cool. And I just wasn't a fan of her really. But when I heard Express Yourself for the first time, I felt like my mind was blown. I'm like, is this Madonna? Like, I couldn't believe that I loved the song so much. And like, kind of like you, but only with this song, really, not with the whole album. I played it over and over and over. I was like, just, obsessed kind of with it. So that's one of my examples.
I was kind of passive aggressive with the singles. Borderline, I kind of liked. A part of it though is that she was everywhere on MTV, so it was kind of an oversaturation. And Like a Virgin, I thought was okay. Material Girl, I kind of thought was okay. Yeah. But when she got to Into the Groove,
oh, that's a great song.
I'm just like, this is a fantastic pop record.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, to this day, I'm very much a Madonna singles person more than an album person, right?
Yeah.
The one you talked about, and then the one that samples the ABBA, and so there's a couple of those that I dig. And I find myself now kind of going back to the older stuff and kind of liking. I still don't like a lot of her slow stuff. Like, I don't think she does ballads well.
Well, because she can't really sing. I mean, sorry, but she's not like a singer.
But no, it's just, I just don't like the way they're produced. They just sound too polished, right? But I also like Deeper and Deeper.
It's fantastic.
Just because it's got that kind of like house thing going on. I guess I kind of like the Maverick years of Madonna the most, because she was sort of into the deep house, going clubbing in New York thing, and it sounded like all the records that I went to. And what was really interesting about her in that time of her career is you go to clubs and they were playing Madonna records, which was like, you never played like a pop record at a club. That's crazy, right? So like those records were starting to get played. Like Vogue was everywhere too.
Yeah, it was.
It just that just annoyed the hell out of me.
Me too. I didn't like that.
I'm like, okay, this is cute. We're done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are a couple of the things of hers that I kind of liked.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you talk about the Maverick years, I'm kind of with you on that. Like, and being a singles artist, I love a lot of her singles now, and particularly the stuff she did in the 90s. I mean, if you listen to the Greatest Hits Volume 2, that album is a banger. Like, there is not a weak track on. I don't know that I'd ever buy one of the albums from the 90s, but if you listen to that singles collection, man, it is slamming. Yeah. It's good.
When you think about Madonna, her 80s stuff is Jelly Bean Benitez and a lot of like record label telling her what to do. The 90s, she's listening to DJs and tastemakers and producers who have track records. Right. Then you get to the 2000s when she starts to want to do things on her own, and that's when it gets kind of murky, right? That's just kind of the thing with Madonna.
I'm going to switch gears 100%. And I'm going to go with a Crosby, Stills and Nash song.
Yep, that's
pretty different, right?
That's a 180 right there.
Yeah. I mean, not that I wasn't a fan of Crosby, Stills and Nash. I totally was and am. But when I heard Southern Cross from the album Daylight Again, and it came out in the 80s. No, not sure what year it was, but MTV played that endlessly, and I just couldn't stand it. I thought it was so uncool, and I just was kind of nauseated by that song. Years later, I heard Wasted on the Way, which I think I heard a live version of it somewhere. And I was like, oh, that's a really great song. What album is that on? And it was Daylight Again. And I said, all right, hold on. I have to revisit. And I did. I revisited. And to this day now, I am obsessed with the song Southern Cross. And I think it's so amazing. And the harmonies are so great. And I don't know, I just had a complete, speaking of 180s, I had a 180 on that song big time. And that album, although it's sort of marred by 80s production, it really is. There are really good songs on that album. Of course, Wasted on the Way, but there's a song called Delta that is, it's so beautiful. But the drums are just such 80s sound.
Oh, yeah. I hate that 80s drum sound.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think I ever saw that song on MTV.
What?
Like I don't know how I escaped it.
I don't remember seeing it either.
But my local rock radio station played it all the time, and I loved it. And I still do love it.
Well, I got converted, so.
Yeah, I was never a Crosby, Stills and Nash. I think I just kind of missed them. Like they were sort of around right before I started listening to radio and stuff, and I don't think I ever really caught up with them until, even though I did go back and listen to a lot of that stuff, like Jefferson Airplane. I'm a huge Airplane fan.
Yeah.
But I never really got into the Crosby, Stills and Nash scene. But Southern Cross I loved.
Keeping it in this, not the same vein, but sort of like an older kind of rock vein. So one more I want to point out, which is Foreigners, I Want to Know What Love Is.
Oh.
Again, a song I hated. You two clearly still hate it. But I mean, again, it was always on. I was just like, this sucks so fucking bad. I couldn't stand it.
Oh, this is going to be a fun show.
But I don't know why. I don't know what made me go listen to it again, or maybe I heard it somewhere and I was like, I don't think I mind it as much as I did. And then I just kept listening to it, and I love it. I don't know. I love it. I love the core.
Yeah.
I love the beautiful chorus with the huge, vocals, and just, I don't know. I think it's beautiful. But
it's a great song. It's just too schmaltzy for me.
Schmaltz. Yeah, it definitely is.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with schmaltz.
I have
Good
more schmaltz later
good.
on.
Oh, great. But no, I mean, it's an okay song. It's just not one that I would sort of go to,
Yeah.
Maybe for a suicide note.
Oh, shit.
So I think this is going to be one of the two parts of the show where Steph and I fight.
Bring it on.
No, I don't think we've ever really fought like this before. So it is pretty widely known of my strong dislike for Elvis Costello. And
I've got my gloves on already.
So when Veronica came out, they played the holy daylights out of that thing on 120 minutes, and it rotated over, kept rotating over, right? And I heard Elvis Costello in the Attractions before and all this stuff, and yes, he almost broke up the Pogues, which really pissed me off. But I just, the early records never really moved much for me, right? And then Veronica was kind of like, okay, this is so poppy, it's an earworm, and it's not going away. That I kind of went back to, with Elvis Costello kind of being a singles guy with Elvis Costello.
Okay.
But it took me longer than the average person to like Elvis Costello.
Well, that's a great song, Veronica. I mean, that I can see why that hooked you.
I mean, it follows all the trademarks, right? I mean, all of his sort of big pop records follow either the 50s or the 60s, pop 4/4 beats. He doesn't
Yeah, I
He
was
doesn't.
thinking about him with Every Day I Write the Book, and not that that was one of my choices for this show or anything, but it did kind of come to mind that that's the song that got me into him when I was younger,
Yeah.
and that's a real talk about pop,
Yeah, because I heard that and watching The Detectives were the first thing. I'm like, this is
Oh, yeah.
okay, but it's not like fantastic, right? Um, and then the other thing is, I, sh- I try to think of myself as being music literate and all that stuff, but I just don't get Dylan. I
Yeah.
Same.
This is
I
where
mean,
Bob's gonna like cut me off, or like I'm from this circle of trust. But
No, this is where we lose half of our subscribers
Yeah.
because they're like, if they don't like Dylan, then how can they be
it's
serious
not that
about
I
music?
dislike him. I think he's a great songwriter, and if I listen to or read the lyrics, it's fantastic. I think he tapped into the zeitgeist of the times, and I think that he is a hugely important and influential artist. I'm not debating that he has
Oh, yeah, of
talent or
course.
any of that.
No, of course.
It's just not my thing. But the times they are changing is still pretty great, and I mean that's the big one, and all on the Watchtower, right? Those are kind of the two. His version of All on the Watchtower is kind of good, but really Hendrix kind of did that too. So
Tangled Up in Blue is fantastic. That's what got me into
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
Well,
just-
speaking
I
of
mean, not,
Watchtower,
as much
though,
as I am. Sorry. Go ahead.
speaking of Watchtower, see, Dylan to me is in a whole category of artists that are important and influential and undeniable. But the only time I like their songs is when someone else does them.
Uh-huh.
Neil Young is in that category too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like
really?
I realize how great Neil Young songs are when other people record them. Isn't that terrible?
Wow.
Yeah.
Funny.
Oh, Bob's not talking to us.
I know. We are disowned.
Yeah,
Can I switch gears 100% again?
yeah.
You're good at that.
Paula Abdul.
Oh God.
Well, I don't. So the thing is, I don't like her music. So I was shocked when I heard Promise of a New Day" from her Spellbound album in '91, because I loved it, and I still do. I love that song. Actually, it's funny. Not this past spring, but the spring before, for some reason, I got obsessed with that song again, "Promise of a New Day," and I just played it over and over again while I was hawk watching. Like I played it for like endlessly as I was watching birds.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I did kind of like The Way That You Love Me as just like a good radio funk kind of popish song. It was fun. But
I don't even know if I know that one, but
yeah, you do.
yeah, I probably do. But
She's just not a good singer.
yeah, no. But that song "Promise of a New Day" is really it's so catchy and so
Yeah.
hooky, and it's really like it's a good one.
I don't know that one, so I'll go listen to
Oh, give it a listen. I think you dig it. Yeah.
it. Okay. Excellent.
Yep.
All right. So let me pull one out here that I used to hang out with. I had a best friend back in Florida named John, and we hung out all the time. And this is like 85-ish. And I met him when I was working at a record store. And we just bonded immediately, and we became best friends, and we hung out all the time, and we hung out every weekend. And I would just stay at his house till like midnight or whatever. And on Friday nights, one of our local stations carried a syndicated show called London Calling. And it was all this British import music that you would never hear on American radio. And I loved it. So I would just stick around at his house until it was about time for that show to start. And it was like a half-hour drive home for me. So I would just stick around and then be like, hey, I got to go, because my favorite show was starting. And so I heard a lot of stuff that I would never have heard otherwise. And it was really interesting and so different from the stuff that makes it onto American Top 40. And one night I was coming home and this song started, and it was so different, and it just caught me by surprise. And the song was called Happy Ever After by Julia Fordham. And this was the first single from her first album. And it was so unique. And it's kind of very dark and kind of moody. And I was like, holy cow, this is incredible. So I finally found I don't remember when the album actually came out here, but I bought it immediately and really loved it. And it's 100% written by Julia Fordham. There's no like covers, there's no outside co-writers or anything like that. And at least 4 of the tracks are just her in piano.
Hmm.
And it's so intimate and so like introspective, and the lyrics are so smart. I followed her for a while. Like the first 4 albums of hers are really good, and then I started kind of to lose interest a little bit, but I still love those first 4 albums. But that first one is so incredible. Like there's
Huh.
really nothing else like it. And she's sort of this song chanteuse kind of thing, but with this kind of husky alto voice. Oh God, it's so, and she's got an incredible range too. So she's, oh my God, she's amazing. That first album just, it still kills me every time I hear it.
Super cool.
Nice.
And you know, she's one of the only time I've ever brought her up on our show before was when we were talking to Gary Clark, because he had done some co-writes on like
That's
her
right.
4th album. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
I'm like, so a lot of the artists that I pick on tonight's show are like, when am I ever going to have a chance to talk about these artists in any other show we ever do? So that's where Julia comes in.
Awesome.
So back when I used to DJ in bars, there's a couple times I had to DJ till 3 a.m, which was hell. But it wasn't the hell of like, you know, doing it in the Midwest is one thing. Doing it in New York is totally different, right? But like trying to find the closing song, I always went for something that's like kind of like silly but doesn't fit with anything else, right?
Mhm.
Or just kind of a hey, go home type of thing, right? So this is such an uncool New York thing, but when I used to close out the Limelight a couple times and the Cooler and a couple places with Bob Seger's "We've Got Tonight."
Whoa.
This is weird because I have something. We're gonna segue into something.
And you know,
That's
I
so
know Kenny
funny.
Rogers did a cover of it, but it's not the same, right? But there's just something about like that heavy, like clunking piano thing that leads into the vocals, and he's like, I know it's late. It's like, oh, okay, you've been at the corner bar where all the really annoying people hang out all night, right? And it just, you know, I may not love all of his records, but you know, Bob Seger is kind of like the everyday musician that Kid Rock is not, right? There's just something about those records, and I don't think he really gets the credit he deserves, right? I mean, yeah, there's the old time rock and roll thing too, and I really wanted to hate him after that record because
Right.
that thing, God, that record was friggin' terrible, right? But this one just kind of like, okay, so that's kind of a record that kind of got me into like some of that stuff.
You know, I have very mixed feelings about Bob Seger. I really
Yeah, me
don't like
too.
a lot of his stuff,
Yeah, me
but
neither.
something that's really like stereotypical Seger is Night Moves. And I think that's a really good song.
Yeah.
That's like a really well-written song.
Mm-hmm.
So I dig that one, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So speaking of Segers that have nothing to do with one another,
Okay.
I wanted to talk about Bruce Springsteen's Seeger Sessions album.
Oh yeah.
So he released an album in 2006, was basically covers of Pete Seeger songs, and I'm a little biased because our friend Jeremy Chatsky was the bass player in this band, and it was just a bunch of amazing musicians. So I didn't hear the album before I saw them live, and when I saw this amazing show, it was very intimate too. It was a sort of a very small venue where he was doing these songs. I was absolutely captivated. And I'm not a huge Springsteen fan. I never had been really before. But this just changed my whole perception of him. Also seeing him live, I was kind of blown away by Bruce, and I could feel the whole charisma thing of Bruce really came through to me. But then I went and I really sat down with that album and listened. And oh my God, the covers on this are so amazing. Like Jacob's, particularly these three, Oh Mary, Don't You Weep, Jacob's Ladder, and Pay Me My Money Down. I mean, but all the whole album, the album as a whole is so strong. And that actually really, it unexpectedly got me into Bruce Springsteen more than I ever thought I would be. And then I went back and, kind of listened to more of his albums. And Bob took me to another show, like a big, huge show at like the Garden or something. And it was so great. So I really found a new appreciation for him through that album.
Yeah, I think, like most people of my age, my entryway was Born in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
But then I went right out. I jumped right from that to Nebraska. And once I heard Nebraska, I was just hooked. And, every time I've seen him, it's just been like, my God.
Yeah, he's something live. Yeah. I was like, okay, I get it.
I was listening to Top 40 back when Born to Run was hitting the radio and became a big hit. And I really, really love that song. I never really became a big Springsteen fan, but I've liked things here and there over the years. Tunnel of Love was a great song. The Nebraska album was really good. I just never really kind of like got on board fully.
Yeah.
2009, when I was working at a music store, we got an in-store play copy of his newest album at that time called Working on a Dream.
Oh, that's
fantastic album.
Such a good album.
And it blows me away that it only went gold.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, that is such a great album. I love that album.
It is fantastic. And I was really, so I guess I didn't even have this on my list, but now that Rob brings up Springsteen, I just realized I was completely surprised that I love that album as much as I did. And I still do love it. It's fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, he's incredible. So I used to work with a guy when I worked at this bookstore. His apex was like, his shtick was going to see Jackson Browne as many times as a human being could, right? So eventually he wore me down with just a lot of the stuff that he played. But I think literally in the 6 years that I worked with him, I think I heard Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty at least twice a day, right? And I don't love it, but man, when I hear that sax in it, I stop because the sax is really good, right? And it's just like, I have a new respect for him as a musician because I sort of learned how he had to make his records and stuff. But I don't like anything else by him, but that one I can at least listen to, or if it's on, I kind of stop and it's kind of an earworm. I kind of went for earworms with some of these. So,
Well, speaking of wearing down, now this is a very obvious one, but Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You. I mean,
oh Lord,
talk about wearing down. I mean, I really, how many times could you hear that song? Right. But I think it was a live performance that I saw. And, there's something about Whitney, there's something about a few singers I find that I really, if I see them sing live, it really makes me love them, but I won't go buy their album. But so Whitney is one of them. Another one is Celine Dion. I'm not a fan, but just to see her sing is and Jennifer Hudson. I love her. I think she's amazing, but also to see her sing is it takes it to a whole other level.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
That brings me to my next person, which is who I'm also not really a fan of, but this song, when I saw her sing it live, I was just blown away, which is Christina Aguilera's Beautiful from the Stripped album in 2002. That just, I saw her sing that. It was just her, and she was like sitting down, just singing it, very, very simple, and I just was just blown away by that song, but also her and her voice. And I just really realized, wow, she's so fucking talented,
Wow. That's cool.
So I think my musical education can be broken down in chapters. Like there's the chapter when I used to hang out at the pool up until I was like 10. And then there's the roller skating years. And then there's the years I went to the juice bar right? And then,
Right.
everything else after, right?
Yeah.
But when I used to go to the pool in the summer, they used to play a lot of hit radio, and there's a lot of stuff that always got repeated all the time, right?
Yeah.
And bear in mind, I was maybe 9, so like 77 to like 79-ish, kind of in that little range of time, maybe early 1980, right? Because in the Midwest, you have nothing to do, and it's hot in the summer, so you go to the pool. But Feel So Good by Chuck Mangione, that thing was friggin' everywhere in 1977, right? I mean, it was used in every commercial. It was used in like every public service announcement, every news story about a sad person opened with that horn thing. And now it's it's got this like really weird, I mean, it starts off with horns, but it's got this like funky, like really wow, 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 wow kind of thing in the middle of it. That's like, what is this? Right. It's still a crazily weird record.
Mm-hmm.
And I broke out.
I love that he like allowed King of the Hill to kind of skewer him on that song. Oh my God, it's so funny.
And then the other one at that time, I remember, Toto's Africa was freaking everywhere. I couldn't escape that thing, right? And now I'm to the point where like I think I hated that record for like the summer that it came out, and then it just died, like because they moved on to Rosanna or something, right? And then I heard it a couple years later. I'd go to a bar by my house, and they would play this thing all the time, and it kind of turned into like a weird sing-along thing. And then I stopped going to the bar, and I didn't hear it for about maybe 10 years, which was, oh my God, it's amazing. And now I still, when I hear it every once in a while, it's like, okay, I can tolerate this, but it always harkens me back to certain times of like my early childhood to like adolescence to like adulthood, right?
Yeah.
And it's still a record that's just like, this thing won't leave the planet, right? It's like they put it on Voyager, shipped it into space. It won't leave the planet, right? You just can't get away from it. So there's that one too.
Another one that was that pervasive, and this is not on my list, but it reminds me of a Saturday Night Live skit when Hanson was the musical guest, and they involved them in a skit like that stupid song Bop played like every 5.5 minutes on every station in every state of the country, and they did a little thing where there was basically like using the song as torture to get information or whatever. It's just hilarious.
I know a couple really solid tastemakers, people whose music opinion in music I would respect and really like, and they all friggin' love the fuck out of that record, right? And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm working in the record store one day, and they're putting it on. I'm like, why are we putting this on I can't put on the Jesus and Mary chain because you're putting on fucking Hanson, right? And now they sell out every time they come. It's just, I don't understand it. It is a catchy as heck. It is painfully catchy.
It is.
I will say that there was that. I think it was the second single, "Where's the Love?" Fantastic song.
Really?
I thought it should have gotten the airplay that got, but it didn't. I thought it was great. Okay, this has been a lot of fun so far, but let's take a real quick break, and we'll be back in about 30 seconds with some more great stories.
Pardon the interruption. We'll bring you back to your podcast in just a moment. But first, promo for the Cosmic Pizza Podcast.
Here on the ESO Network, 3 hosts recommend this podcast.
I recommend it.
I recommend it.
And I recommend it.
On the Cosmic Pizza Podcast, it's a slice of life as we discuss literally anything in the universe. Cosmic Pizza Podcast.
Here to serve all of your needs.
Wednesday, I'm here with you people. It's like wild.
No pizzas were harmed in the creation of this podcast.
All right, we're back. Stephanie, what you got next?
All right, so you were talking about Hanson, and that just reminded me of Carly Jepsen. Is that
yeah,
her name, right? So
Carly Rae Jepsen.
Carly Rae Jepsen. That's why. Yeah. Call Me Maybe. I mean, look, I hated it, but then it wore me down. It did. It wore me down, and I started dancing along to it when I would hear it. You can't deny a good pop song when you know.
All right. Well, I'm going to go for one. The rest of the ones on my list, since I talked about Springsteen and hearing an in-store play copy, a couple of my picks, actually, the rest of my list all come from in-store play copies at various locations where I worked. The first one that I'm thinking of, this is from '86, and I was working at Specs Music back in Central Florida. This was in Winter Haven, Florida. And we got this Australian band that would never have gotten any radio play in America. They were called Wa Nee, and they were sort of this
The
white
sugar-free
funk.
song.
Yes, exactly. They were sort of this white funk band, and this was when I was like super into like the American funk scene with Prince and Sheila and The Time and all of Prince's offshoots like The Family. I was just super into that scene, and so these guys came along and they just slotted right into that scene. And the first album was just a self-titled album, Wa Nee, and it was so good. We got that as an in-store play copy, and I'm sure we were the only store in the entire country that played it. And I sold a copy here and there because people heard it, and I played it all the time. And I just loved it so much. And I still listen to it on a pretty regular basis. One of their second single was the only big hit that they had here in America, Sugar Free, a weird song. And there's actually some stylistically surprising things on this album. Like it's a pretty straightforward white funk kind of album, but there's some stuff like the second song, Teacher, is got such a weird and different groove to it that it's really cool. It's a fantastic album.
I don't think I've ever even heard of this band.
No. They had 2 albums and they were done, and I've never heard the second album. So
And this is the most anyone's talked about Wa Nee in like 30 years.
exactly. This is gonna start a revival of their career. I feel it. I just know it will.
I think, Alan, this is a case too of a band that, like, with that first record, if they didn't put Sugar Free on it, it'd be like, this is an amazing record. But Sugar Free just is so, I don't hate it. It's just so overproduced that
it's a dorky song. It is not the best song on the album. And it's funny how that happens sometimes, where the song that doesn't define the album, like it's the one that's sort of the outlier, becomes the radio hit.
Yeah.
And nobody ever hears the other stuff.
Yeah.
Or if they do, they don't like the other stuff because it doesn't sound like that one song. And,
right.
But there's some fantastic songs on this album. Stimulation is amazing. The opening track, 1 and 1, is great. Man Child, oh my God, such a killer album.
I went through a really horrible, nasty breakup in the early 90s, right? And it was one of those, like, I'm going to stay home and drink and listen to my Smiths records kind of things, right? And but it turns out this person had broken every record in my house.
No way.
The only record I could find were the albums that my landlady had in the closet of her storage room, because I lived in her basement apartment. So I found a copy of The Jazz Singer by Neil Diamond, right?
Wow.
Which I have
all the records to survive.
Which when I was, well, no, I mean, she didn't touch any of hers. I mean, all of the Steve Lawrence, all that crap's fine, right? She breaks up mine. So anyway, and when I was in Mexico, that I saw that movie in the theater when I was 12. I went to Mexico when I was 12. Anyway, so I'm like, I think there's a sad song in it. So I think I literally played Love on the Rocks by Neil Diamond, I think every day for 3 days. And my friend Lionel Drummond came over to see me. He came down from Queens, and he's like, man, I don't think you're very okay. So now when I hear that, I
Love on the Rocks.
And he's got that husky, he's got that really husky thing on it that he doesn't sound like Neil Diamond on any of the other songs where he does that, right? You know, this is like very husky and sort of sad, and it's
yeah.
So that's my sad.
Oh, that's a sad breakup story. I
yeah.
can't believe the records were all smashed. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Bad news. All right, I have a another one that sort of converted me to an artist, a song that converted me to an artist, although in a little bit of a different way. So I was never a Keith, and I still am not really a Keith Urban fan. Ooh. I don't like his songs really.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw he did a CMA music festival in 2010, and he covered with a little help from my friends.
Oh, cool.
And the Joe Cocker version. You know, he kind of did it like that with backup singers who were so amazing. And I was
John Belushi there?
Yeah, right. Oh God, was the ghost of John Belushi there? So I actually I was like, I can't believe this is the same dude who sings these schmaltzy songs that I don't like, you know. And I've seen him do covers of other songs too that I think the guy is just, to me, he needs to be a total rocker instead of this half country pop kind of crap.
Right.
He's got such a great voice. He's such a good guitar player.
Yes,
and
he is.
can fucking rock. And I wish he would do more stuff like rockin'.
Yeah. CMT does this occasional special where it's like a rock artist and a country artist. It's called Crossroads, where they are ones that kind of influence each other. And they did one with Keith Urban and John Mayer. And it was so good. And even though I don't really care for a lot of Keith Urban's songs, I respect the hell out of him as an artist, as a performer, as a guitar player, especially. And they just did this song where it was this long sort of guitar jam where they just played guitar and they played off of each other, and it was spellbinding. And I just think he is a spectacular guitar player.
He is.
And I would go to any Keith Urban concert where he just spent 90 minutes just playing guitar.
Yeah.
He's incredible. I don't care much for his country songs. And it's not that I don't like country. It's just that some of his songs are a little trite. And I just think he's so much better than that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, I don't really consider what they call country today country. It's just, to me, it's just schmaltzy or pop. I don't know.
Right.
So, yeah, you're right. That's a good way to put it. He's so much better than that. He could be so much better than that.
But I mean, he's doing fine. He's making a good living.
Who are we to say? I mean, like, guys,
right. Who are we to argue with the guy?
So, as we continue to destroy our demographics on this show,
right?
I'll piggyback off of what you said, Steph. And you know, when I was an adolescent, and I listened to what my dad would refer to as the fright rock, you know, both of my sisters, whenever they had a boyfriend or whatever, they would try to like get me to like whatever like nonsense they'd listen to, whether it was Alabama or Leonard Skinner or any of that stuff, right? But I helped my brother-in-law work on my dad's car one summer, and literally every day for 3 months, I think I heard that really popular Eddie Rabbitt record, Forever.
Ew.
Right? So like literally, I think now, you know, there's sort of a knee-jerk reaction to when I hear Driving My Life Away, right? Because I would hear that thing. I'm like, okay, this is kind of catchy. The percussion's kind of cool. It does have this sort of driving contemporary pop feel to it, right? This is kind of when I think country started to kind of go pop a lot more too. But and I kind of forgot about it, right? And then I'm watching The Americans, the TV show.
Oh yeah.
And they used it on that, right? I think in the last season of The Americans. And I'm like, I can't get this out of my head. And then literally I was in a store last week picking up some stuff, and I heard it again. I heard it 3 times in 3 different stores last week.
That's weird.
Yeah. So that was kind of weird. The other weird one that I have a sort of weird love-hate with is the 10cc Not in Love song.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
I love that
Which
song.
I really love how they use it in Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's got that sort of like that little noise at the beginning that kind of like sounds like Brian Eno, but it's not, right?
Right. Right.
It's like, this is really good. You know, and I have a friend who loves 10cc, and it's like 10cc or like Beatles, right? And you know, I don't love a lot of their records, but that one's like, you know, I can always listen to that when I have to, right? It's sort of on my like the list in my back pocket that I have of like normal people music. I can have a conversation with normal people about music, right? And it's kind of in that camp.
I've got a jazz one.
Ooh.
Bring it on.
This is more jazz, like pop kind of jazz, but it's a vocalist. And again, this was a discovery of mine through in-store listening. This was when, again, I was at Specs Music in Winter Haven, Florida. This is from 1985. And it's a vocalist that I have an enormous amount of respect for. He is an incredible talent, but I just never bought an album until we got a copy of Live in London, Al Jarreau.
Oh.
That live album, just, I don't know, it caught me. And this is, 85 is when I was like into a lot of metal and stuff like that. And I was blown away by it. And it's basically like a greatest hits album with a couple of like really key album tracks all presented in this really great live album. And the first song on the album, Raging Waters, was like, I was like, holy cow, I didn't know Al Jarreau did stuff like this. But then the rest of the album was stuff like Let's Pretend and High Crime and We're in This Love Together and Teach Me Tonight. And it's just amazing. And it's like every different style of jazz that he sings is represented on this album. And it's so good. And I would play that stupid record all the time. And I would get, we never had that many different in-store play things going at the same time. So you'd get tired of hearing everything. But then every time it was my turn to play stuff, my coworkers were like, oh God, he's going to play that fucking record again. And I did get stuck on a few of them. And there was one of them called by a band called Maserati, which was on Prince's record label, because I knew they weren't getting any play on radio or MTV or anything. And I knew that if I played it, I would sell records, and I would be like the only store in America that was going to sell copies of this record. So I played it every single time I was on shift. And I sold at least one copy every time I played it. So
they owe you some royalties.
They do. They do. So yeah, Al Jarreau, man, that live album, Live in London from 1985. It's a great encapsulation of Al Jarreau's career up to that point, and he is just an extraordinary vocalist.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. Okay, I'm gonna throw back to the 70s song from 72, Steely Dan, Reelin' in the Years.
As soon as you said Steely Dan, I knew that was the song you were gonna pick.
Because I guess I was sort of by osmosis a Steely Dan fan because my parents would play the Steely Dan records. So but I didn't, I don't know. I guess I didn't really think one way or the other of them. I liked them, or I just knew them. But that Reelin' in the Years song, I guess it pretty much annoyed me for many, many years. And then after getting super into Asia, their album Asia, later on, I went back to Can't Buy a Thrill, which is what Reelin' in the Years is on. And so I don't know, I gained a whole new appreciation for that song. And I can also, I could sing you the guitar solos in that song because I know them by heart, like every note. And I because that's how much I've played it over and over and over, and sort of, like I said, gained an appreciation for that.
That was a great album, though. I mean, it had, in addition to, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about Asia.
Oh,
Asia is also a phenomenal album.
Everything on Asia is just insane. Yeah,
exactly.
But Reelin' in the Years, that
was an interesting song. I remember hearing that on the radio back in the day.
Yeah,
and it kind of surprises me sometimes how many like top 40 hits Steely Dan had.
Oh yeah,
I heard them all the time, and they didn't really sink into my brain, you know what I mean, until later on. And I was like, I know all this stuff from my growing up years, and it kind of surprised me just how much radio success that band had.
Well, Asia itself, I mean, it's not a very it doesn't have
like
that many songs
on
on it. But yeah, there's at least so half your greatest hits are going to be from that album anyway.
Yeah, really, because it's got Peg, and I remember playing
Rosie.
Peg in my when I was in 10th grade. I was in jazz band at school, and we played an arrangement of Peg, and there's Deacon Blues and Josie.
But Black Cow,
that's a killer album.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's my Steely Dan story.
Nice.
I didn't love Aha out of the gate.
Ooh,
mainly because the juice bar I went to played Take On Me like 6 times every night.
right.
Right. But once they got to, I think, Train of Thought, which was the second single. Yeah, I think.
I think Train was the third single, because second was the other one that you like a lot. With the
Sun
long
Always
title.
Shines on TV.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
Train of Thought was third single.
Okay, so like Sun Always Shines on TV, I was kind of like, okay, this isn't bad. But when they got to Train of Thought, I was kind of like, I just need to listen to these guys and eliminate the MTV hype and all the pretty boy stuff, and the fact that like literally girls would stop having a conversation with me if they heard an AHA record on, right? And they really are a better band than I think people give them credit for.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I don't even remember how or why I got sucked in. And it may have been Sun Always Shines on TV, because I really did like the first single, but it's really poppy and it's a bit bubblegumish. But Sun Always Shines on TV, I don't know, there was something about it and about the music video itself that really, really hooked me. And I think that may have been when I bought the album, and I ended up absolutely loving the entire album.
Yeah, it's a much better album than than the singles on it. What did it make you think?
That first album, Hunting High and Low, the title song was the fourth single, and it had a super cool music video where it was kind of animated, and Morton is like singing the song, and then he's hunting high and low, right? So he turns into an eagle and he searches the sky for his love, and then he turns into a dolphin and he dives under the ocean and looks for, and it's so great. Oh my God. But yeah, I'm a hardcore lifelong AHA fan, and it all comes down to that first album. It's just amazing.
I'll have to go revisit because I'm really not familiar with much more than Take On Me, really.
Their guitar player / keyboardist, Paul Vakhtar, is one of the main songwriters in the band. They all contribute, but he does a lot of it. And he's got a darkness about him because surprising songs about death and murder. I mean, he's got some really interesting stuff. So yeah, I encourage everyone to go and dive deeper into AHA.
Super.
Love them.
All right, and let's hear it. There's a total 180 again.
Yay!
Yay! So I was really way into early hip hop and going to clubs in the early 80s and mid 80s, and even I guess it was late 80s, and just like listening to all the cool new bands. I was super into Stetsasonic. I was so into Public Enemy. There was a time when things just sort of started going in a direction of more violence, more just it was almost like a harder version of rap that I was used to and that I liked. And so it kind of it just turned me off. Yeah. Yes. Apprehensive is a good word. But when I heard NWA's Fuck the Police, I was absolutely floored.
Yeah.
And that album just got me into that whole album, and just it really changed my mind, I think, about not all of that, not all, rap that was super violent or whatever, but I mean, they were just speaking truth to power in such a way that you can't deny the power of that album. So that was a real big one for me.
I remember we talked about that on one of our previous shows, about what an atom bomb.
Yeah.
I mean, when that thing dropped, it dropped hard.
Yeah.
Like, it was shocking. And I think it was eye-opening.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
God,
definitely. If you could receive the message, it was, yeah.
It was
if
powerful.
You weren't, it really speaks for itself. There's nothing to, really, there's nothing else to say about that. It just, that album speaks for itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this isn't rap, but I got an R&B artist, and this is another in-store play. And this is from 2008, and it's Raphael Saadiq. And he had been in the band Tony, and he had gone on to be like a real career songwriter, producer, musician, and a solo artist. He also produced records for people like Erykah Badu and Jill Scott and Stevie Wonder and TLC and Whitney Houston and Mary J. Blige. I mean, he has just become a real R&B powerhouse. But he, in 2008, an album called The Way I See It. Oh my God. We played it this is when I was working at Barnes and Noble. I was a manager at the music department in one of the Barnes and Nobles here in Atlanta. And I love that album so much. It was just this long, it was, this is the CD years. So it's just like an 80-minute stretch of just really well-crafted, kind of like modern versions of throwback R&B. Oh my God, it was so good. And so I was doing a little reading up on it today, and I found where in 2008, Elton John said that it was his favorite album of the year, and he called it a soul record of the highest quality.
Oh, wow.
It is amazing. It is so good. But I didn't think about this and put it on my list, but around that same time is when I got my first introduction to John Legend. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember which album it was. It was, I think, his third album. And we played that in store, and I just fell in love with it. And I think that, talk about throwback R&B, I think that John Legend is an extraordinary talent. I really think that he has got this classic sound to his voice, and I really think of him as the modern day Nat King Cole, like this timeless voice. Mm-hmm. And it, thanks to, my dumb job in the music department at Barnes and Noble, I discovered what an incredible talent John Legend is. And the album is so good. It's so different from the stuff that you hear on the radio. It's amazing.
I'll leave you with a 1982 hit from Scandal, Goodbye to You. Which,
oh my gosh, I love that album. I love that song so much.
Well, now I do, but I didn't. I just was like, I don't know why. I couldn't appreciate her when it came out. I don't think. I don't know. I just didn't think they were so cool. And I just, I was just more into like stuff like the Go-Go's and stuff like that. But, I don't know. Maybe whatever. Anyway, I came to appreciate her amazing voice, Patti Smythe. God, what a voice she has. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty much of an undeniable pop song. So
she had Scandal had a couple of hits, and they were completely different from each other. Stylistically, they were worlds apart.
Yeah, just think about like The Warrior,
Right. And then she had like a solo hit, and then she sang on that Hooters song, Where Do the Children Go? Yes. That was like it. I mean, she should have had a much bigger career than she had, either with Scandal or after Scandal. She should have been a much bigger presence on the scene, I think.
I agree, because her voice really is very unique, very powerful. And it's kind of a shame that she didn't really have massive success. I mean, she had plenty of success, and it's not like she didn't have success, but like in a Whitney Houston way,
an ongoing kind of success.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. I mean, especially going into this, having no idea where this discussion was going to go. There was a lot of really fun things that came up. So I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, it was good.
But, hey, it is now time for our picks of the week. So, Rob, why don't you kick us off?
So I guess I'll start with a movie. It's kind of making the rounds. And I know Steph will be interested in this too, I think. Mm-hmm. But Out of Time, it's the Material Issue movie. It's all about the Chicago band Material Issue, which was a big thing. Material Issue story. They were a big deal when I was first starting doing college radio. Valerie Loves Me and Diane and stuff. And just a band that should have broke, man. I mean, if the Replacements broke, Material Issue should have broke, right? And they had a huge cult following in the Midwest. And their lead singer passed away, took his own life. And it's just a heartbreaking story, but the documentary is very, very good. So I recommend that. You should see that. Also, I want to recommend a band from Sydney, Australia. They're called Bridge Dog, and they're really, really, really good. They kind of got that beach house sort of like Always kind of thing going on, and they've got a couple singles. They're just great. Like they have a single called Counterweight that's just probably one of the best singles I've heard this spring. So recommend that. Also, I was, like many people, super thrilled this week to learn that Sia Rose have a new album.
Mm-hmm.
They're currently touring with an orchestra, but the album's called Ada, and it's fantastic. It's their first album in 10 years, and it's just everything I want it to be, and I'm super happy about that. And Sleepy Kitty have an album. They're kind of an indie band that
Kind of.
I know.
That's
Well,
the
the
most
drummer-
indie band name I've ever heard.
well, the drummer used to be in Harvey Danger.
Okay.
And, but they're a really great live pop band. And Blessing Curse, Steph, you'll love it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sleepy Kitty. I like the name so much.
You will just, yeah. So they just played some gigs in Paris and London, and they're fantastic. They've done, a couple of stuff. They're one of their members was the guitarist for Ezra Furman on his tour. So it's their first record in a while. It's coming out on Nordic Records, and it is excellent. And then also an early contender for Album of the Year, and it brings back the full big 90s sound that you got with like Simple Minds and some of the early U2 records. But The Alarm are back. They have a new album called
What?
Forwards. Yeah,
The Alarm?
The Alarm. And
Holy cow!
And I'm really happy for Mike Peters. Because
Yes.
he beat cancer.
Yes.
Twice.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
He beat leukemia. He was going to tour. The cancer came back, and he
Mm.
beat it again. And
Mm.
he's just an all-around nice guy.
Yep.
So
Great. That's awesome.
but it's
That's
just
so cool.
that whole record is just friggin' amazing.
Wow.
And you should look into that. And then also there's a new Joan Jett EP out for her
Oh.
tour. Yeah. If You're Blue. So I'm very excited about that. It's only a couple songs, but it's a nice little taster. She's on tour right now. Pretty much if anybody needs an opening band, they call Joan Jett and she opens for them. And then everybody goes to see her and they leave.
She has made a career out of opening for other bands.
Yeah.
Like she has this hour-long set that is hit packed.
Yeah.
That she does the same damn set every year, well, every half a year, because when she finishes a Boston tour, then she's on a
Heart. I saw her with Heart like a few years ago.
yeah,
Well, that makes sense.
And oh my God, so every band that tours has she'll open for them at some point.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
I mean,
Joan.
you can't deny it.
She's going to open for ABBA.
open for ABBA.
Um,
If the Carpenters were still touring, she'd open for them too.
but I'm really happy to have her sort of still chugging away and making
Oh
records.
yeah.
Sure.
We're at a time right now when people are talking about the revival of the Riot Girl movement and stuff. I'm like, guys, how about it's a revival of the Joan Jett, Susie Quattro movement? How
Yeah.
about we just call it what it is, right? So I want to recommend that as well.
All right. Well, Steffi, I know that you and I both saw shows this weekend.
Yep.
So why don't you go?
All right. Bob and I went to see your friend and mine, Ira Elliott from Not a Surf.
Woohoo!
When you
I
can
love that
listen to
guy.
Ira on our drummers
Pod-
episode.
Yeah. What makes a good drummer?
You can listen to Ira on our What Makes a Good Drummer episode. But anyway, Ira is in a band called Bambi Kino. And the band members are Ira, Doug Gillard from Guided by Voices, Eric Paparazzi from like Cat Power, and Mark Razzo from Maplewood and Champale. So they're unbelievable like group of musicians. And they play songs that cover the Beatles' formative years from like 1960 to 62 when they were just before they hit their celebrity. and they were playing in Hamburg. And so most, I think, if not all of the songs they do are classic covers that the Beatles used to just practice to, and they cut their chops on, on these songs. So they played at a place called Heaven Can Wait, which is the old Brownies in New York City. And they did 3 sets. Like, it was sold out. The crowd was just jumping up and down like the whole time, swinging around, dancing. And it was like a just old fashioned, sweaty, good time rock and roll show. So go see Bambikino if you can, if they grace your town with their presence. I don't know if they're playing on tour right now, but definitely check them out if you can.
And how was Ira?
Ira, he's always the best. He's always like so upbeat and cheerful and lovely. He's a wonderful person, and we love him so much. And he's one of my favorite drummers of all time.
Yeah. And, I only know him from the show that we did with him, and he was so nice and so just friendly.
So such a great guy.
Yeah. I love that guy.
Yep.
All right. Well,
What did you see?
Friday night. Okay. This is going to sound kind of cheesy, but I don't care. Friday night, I went to see Styx.
Yes.
Oh my God. So they still just blow me away because they've got this huge career of hits, and this was basically a greatest hits show.
Oh, wow.
Which, is fine because I don't see them on every tour. I get tired of those bands who just play the same fucking set list all the time. And Styx at least rotates out some of the stuff from their newest album, but since I don't see them but every like 3 years or so, and I don't ever really put the hits on any of my like Styx playlists, hearing one night of just nothing but Styx hits is so much fun. And it blows me away that the core of the band is James Young, who was one of the founding members back in 70, I think it was, and Tommy Shaw, who came in 75. And it just blows the snot out of my head that Tommy is like 2 months away from 70 and JY is 73. And neither of them look, sound, or act like their age. They are perpetually a solid, amazing, good performing band. And, Dennis DeYoung has been out of the band for 20 something years. And the guy that they got to replace him is this dude named Lawrence Gowan, who's a big star in Canada. And he is an incredible frontman. He's 66 and he just runs around and jumps on top of his keyboard and dances like crazy. And it just blows my mind that they are as old as they are and they do the stuff that they do.
That's so cool.
Oh, it was so much fun. But I also this week watched a documentary, and it was one that we've mentioned this on the show before. It was a band that I never heard of. I didn't know anything about them. I knew one song because the Bangles recorded it. I watched the Big Star documentary.
I knew when you said that.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Oh, I love Big Star.
So now I'm like all listening to the first couple of Big Star albums.
Yeah.
So, September Girls was on the Bangles' third album, and
cover.
it was sung by Michael Steele, their bass player, who I absolutely love.
Yes.
She's got such a killer voice, and I love their recording of that song. But, and once I heard the original, I liked it too. But it wasn't until, we talked about them on this show that I was like, I just don't know anything about Big Star. And you both were like, what?
I know. Bob couldn't believe you didn't know like who they were. There's you should check out Chris Bell also has I think it was a posthumous release.
I will.
I Am the Cosmos.
Yeah.
I
wow,
plan to. Yeah.
What a record that is.
And then all the This
Awesome.
Mortal Coil covers of theirs. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I'm
Cool.
like I'm really digging Big Star right now, and I'm so excited that I finally, came around to him.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
kind of apropos for our show topic tonight, in a way.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I just watched it a couple of days ago. How did I not think to put that on my list?
That's all right. That's why I'm here, Alan.
Thank you. I'm glad that you take up my slack.
In her ongoing role as den mother, she is here for us.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for us this week. We're going to be back next week. I don't know what we're talking about, but it's going to be something fun. Stephanie, where can people find more about you?
You can find me on Bandcamp under my name. You can find me at Stephanie Seymour Music on Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram at there_r_birds, and also just at my website, therearebirds.com. Oh, and of course, all the streaming platforms, Spotify and all those.
Right on. Rob.
So you can find me on Louder Than More Radio on Mondays from 6 to 8 Greenwich time, which is 1 to 3 Eastern, 12 to 2 Central, and I'm too mathematically dumb to figure out Pacific, but you can do that on your own if you need to. That's a show called Antics, and if you listen to it in real time, that's great. If not, you can go to the Mixcloud on their webpage and hear all of the previous 16 editions of the show and the new one, and listen to that as well. You also can find some of my writing on Ink 19 and a couple other websites. I'm part of the Need Coffee Weekend Justice podcast, and also for almost 29 years now, I have hosted Juxtaposition on KDHX. It's on Wednesday nights, and that's from 7 to 9. So if you're at home and you want to listen to the radio, or maybe you're trying to get that dreaded wombat out of your yard, you can listen to that while you're running around like a madman trying to get rid of the wombats. Or maybe the wombats are keeping you from listening to the radio. That's fine too, because we have an archived stream. And basically what this means now is you can listen to any of the shows on KDHX whenever you want for 2 weeks. All the shows are archived for 2 weeks, and you can listen to that till your heart's content. So there you go. And Alan, tell the kids where they can find you.
Go to cosmiccreative.com, KOZMICCreative.com, and you can buy one of my books, or you can listen to one of my other podcasts, like my Star Trek podcast, Earth Station Trek, or my Doctor Who podcast, Doctor Who A to Z. That would be Jim Dandy if you did such a thing. I would love you forever. But while you're doing all that stuff, why don't you go and connect more with us? You can email us your thoughts and comments to modernmusicology1@gmail.com, or you can find us on our Facebook page, our Instagram. Don't bother looking for us at Twitter, because I never remember to put anything out there on our Twitter. So don't even bother. But look for us on Facebook and on Insta. We do some stuff there. And you could find our YouTube channel. We just need a few more subscribers so that we can get a custom URL.
Yes.
So go do that.
Do that.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back in 1 week. Take care and keep rocking on.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.